Nobody actually talks about this, but it is probably the most important factor in unlocking these skills. Apple, check. Pre-workout, check. Everything else, check. I'm not taking the ankle weights today. Okay. What's up, guys? Today we are talking about a very special topic: how to actually get good at calisthenics. And it's quite a controversial topic these days because everyone is an expert and everyone wants to give tips. All right. So, here's the thing, right? It's usually gonna be either like hyper-specific tips that are gonna work for some people and not gonna work for others, or it's gonna be some bullshit. With the hyper-specific tips, that's what coaching is for. That's where you get someone who looks at your case and who's gonna know what you need and how you can get better. There's no one-size-fits-all. Anyone who's telling you there's a one-size-fits-all is full of shit. I'm sorry to say it to you, but it's unfortunately the truth. Now, that said, when it comes to training principles, they are universal. And if you understand them, and you learn how to digest them, and you learn how to use them in your own recipe, you will actually get better. And that's what we're here to do today. So the first training principle we're gonna talk about is theory. Theory comes first, really, in the process. You can just start by trying shit, but if you don't understand the theory behind the skill you're trying to try, you are gonna waste so much time. You might get close to it and then end up doing it wrong and having to walk shit back and relearn it, or even worse, you might get injured. So theory is essentially understanding what it is that you're trying to do. There's quite a few ways you could do that, okay? You could watch a YouTube video about a specific skill you're trying to learn. You could Google it. You could DM one of your favorite athletes or people who you know could do it. You could go to the park, find someone who you know can do what you're doing. And essentially, the first thing you want to do with anything you're trying to learn is understand the mechanics behind the move, the different muscles behind the move, different concepts like leverage, like your center of gravity, where that's gonna be, the different chains of muscles you're gonna use to achieve that skill. Once you theoretically understand what you're trying to do, it makes it infinitely easier to start putting it to work and doing the physical work and putting it into practice. So theory comes first, in my opinion. It can come parallel to the practice, like you could start trying stuff and then bring in like more and more theoretical knowledge. But if you have zero theoretical knowledge and you just start by trying, you're either gonna learn wrong, and somewhere along the way you're gonna have to backtrack and relearn or fix, which kind of sucks, or even worse, you're gonna get injured. So, principle one, theory. Oh, guys, okay. This is Billy, by the way. I've been wanting to introduce you guys to Billy for a long time now, and this is your first impression of him. Say hello to the YouTube channel, Billy.
You're lying.
I own everything, brother.
You're telling me this is not live.
No. So the second most important training principle that comes after the theory is gonna be the physical work. So you're gonna have to figure out what are the things you need to do physically to build that skill, right? But that builds on top of the first principle, which is theory. If you don't have the theory down, how are you even gonna know what it is you have to build, right? You need to know where you're going. If you're just trying, you're not really building the skill, are you? You're just attempting it. So attempts is part of the physical work, but there's a whole other range of things you need to do, like volume work, intensity work, technique work, accessory work. You need to figure out what all of these different exercises are gonna be so that you can build the skill you're trying to build. For freaking years, I'd come to this gym and be like, man, I wish they had a front lever bar. I wish they had a front lever bar. And little did I know, they had a front lever bar all along. All right, so what you see me do right now, this is the physical work. right? So for my particular case, for me right now, I'm working on planche today a little bit, and I'm working on front lever. So my physical work consisted of the little warm-up I did at the beginning, you know, a few little priming sets where I'm kind of just bringing in like the hardest element, so to speak. And then I'm gonna get into a bunch of attempts, a bunch of combos and attempts where I'm gonna try some difficult combos, try some different attempts. So I'm not doing any technique work to clean anything up today. I did that yesterday. I'm not doing any accessory work today. But this is essentially, when I'm at the workout, this is where the bulk of the physical work happens. Now, how do you actually figure out what the physical work is? Same thing as the first. You Google it, you watch YouTube videos, you reach out to your favorite athletes, you go to your local park where you find someone who knows how to do what you're doing, you read books about it, or you get a coach, okay? So, as you guys can see, once I'm done with my warm-up, I start gradually working up into my working sets towards like the harder combos that I'm trying to attempt. The reason why I do that, especially in this phase of my training, is because right now I'm pre-comp. I'm 2 weeks pre-comp. And I'm, first of all, just trying to make sure everything is activated. And I'm also trying to hit some big volume sets. But I don't like to start with big volume sets off bat. That's just something that I've tweaked with for a long time, which brings me into this third principle that I want to talk to you guys about, which is the equation of training, right? So training is like an equation that involves multiple factors. On a micro level, so on a day-to-day basis, when I come into training, there's 3 factors that are involved in my training. There's gonna be volume, intensity, and frequency, okay? So volume essentially means how long are my workout sessions? How much am I actually doing in terms of volume in my workout sessions? How many sets, how many hours, etc. Intensity is gonna be how hard am I actually working out? And frequency is gonna be how often am I working out? You know, so like if you guys watch Nathan or Elias, for example, or even Levon, they do a lot of grease the groove or like morning activation before their afternoon workout. So they do a lot of frequency, right? They're working out twice a day. I do that sometimes, but most of the time I do once a day, but every day of the week. So my frequency is pretty high. It's not the highest, but it's pretty high. My volume is rather large. I've like gotten to the point where I train for like 2 to 3 hours every single day. But my intensity always stays under 75%. Because if you train over 75%, you can't train every day. If you train to 80, 90, almost 100%, you need rest days. That's the nature of the 100% training. So I've been following that and it's been great. It was a little hard at first because my 75% from years ago was so little. But now today I can work out for 3 hours and still keep it under 75%. And the only time I'll push it to like 85% is right before comp, just so I could feel that like endurance and intensity. But I never really take it to 100 unless I'm in a competition, because there's no point. You know, over the 90% range is where you get close to injury. But I say all that to say, those are the 3 most important factors when it comes to a micro look into your training. It's like, okay, what's my frequency like? What's my volume like over time? And what's the intensity of each training? And tweaking those different factors in that overall equation to find the right, basically the right rhythm for you to train. And that's gonna change too. It's the right rhythm for you to train for where you're at right now, right? So it's a big thing to keep in mind. That is the 3rd principle. And there's another side to it, which I'm gonna get into right now, but I gotta hit a set. On a larger scale, there's also periodization, right? So that's like a big principle that you need to also figure out how to tweak and use to your advantage, which is like different periods. Like there's gonna be periods of your life where you're focused on working a lot of volume and you're not so much focused on like clean form and stuff. There's gonna be other periods of your life where it's the opposite, where you're taking all that volume that you've worked on and now you're like hyper focusing it, cutting down the reps to just a few reps that you can do very, very clean, and doing accessory work and technique work so that you can really dial in like all the muscle engagement when it comes to certain skills. And finally, how to like strategically use rest and deload weeks. That's like, I would say, the second part of these like equations when it comes to, or like these factors when it comes to like the equation of training. So there's the micro factors and the macro, more larger factors. And that is the third most important principle when it comes to actually learning how to learn skills, right? Let's keep training. All right, so as you can tell, the planche is not peaked today. My hips are not complying after the push-ups. They're kind of high, and I assume it's because of my shoulder. I think my shoulder needs some rest, so I think I'm gonna call it for the planches. I think just do some front lever sets, maybe 1 or 2 volume sets. I think I'm gonna go for 5 pull-ups, even if they're not clean, just volume. Okay, so that was horrible, but that was the definition of ugly volume. You guys seen it. Most of your favorite content creators and influencers will never show it to you because they don't want you to see what really goes down. But that is what really goes down, at least for me. You know, I know I'm not one of the best yet, but this is a big part of the journey for me, is this ugly volume that I was, you know, lucky enough to learn is a huge key. And I learned it pretty late in my journey. So I think we're gonna do one more set of really, really ugly volume. So the fourth principle that we need to be talking about is everything outside of training. Okay, so especially is gonna be these 2 things: sleep and food. Okay, I know it's cliche, you hear it everywhere, but when it's cliche, it's true. Okay, if you are not sleeping enough, maybe if you're young you could get away with it, but really, if you're not sleeping enough, you're not recovering enough, you're not gonna adapt to the stress. It's connected to everything we've been talking about, okay? When you go through the process, you know, you learn the theory, you start doing the physical work, you start dialing in your training, you are putting your body under stress so that your body can adapt. If you don't sleep, there is no adaptation that will happen. There's no amount of rest days that are gonna make you adapt more than sleep. Trust me, I've been in the game for so long. I could tell you without the shadow of a doubt, the thing that will slow down your progress the most is getting injured. And one of the things that will prevent injuries the most, besides understanding the theory of what you're trying to do, training properly, programming properly, is sleeping. Because that means recovering and adapting to stress. Okay, the second thing is nutrition. Let's talk about food. So basically, think about it like this, right? Who's your favorite calisthenics athletes? If you like statics, I could bet whatever you want, it's gonna either be one of the NS guys, Nathan, Akira, Gusta, someone who's been on this channel, or maybe Calis Rama, or flippin' La Rosa, maybe someone in Asia, I don't know, Chen Yong Tong, or someone. That said, maybe it's freestyle, right? Maybe it's like a complete freestyle athlete, like Christoph or Tony or something like that. So what do all these people have in common? Think about it, besides the fact that they do calisthenics. They're all shredded. I know it sounds like, but think about it. They are all super shredded. Like, we're talking sub 10% body fat. What's up, Alex? All right, my bad. I got carried away with my boy Alex, but as I was saying, they are all sub 10% body fat. Okay, that is not a coincidence. It is not. It's not a coincidence that everybody who is elite at calisthenics, let's not say everybody, but 99% of athletes that are elite at calisthenics are shredded to the fucking bone. Okay, the only person who breaks this rule, and it's just because he is a freak of nature and a genetic anomaly, is Javi Latorre. Aside from Javi Latorre, everybody falls under this rule, which at this point is nearly a fact. And think about it. That shit makes sense, right? Calisthenics, body weight. Any extra pound of weight that is unnecessary, which means that is not muscle mass, that is fat, that is on your body, you have to carry it with your arms. Okay, and if you understand the theory of the skills you're trying to do, and you understand leverage and a center of gravity and center of mass, then you understand that any extra pound is not just an extra pound you have to carry. It's like orders of magnitude more, because holding 10 pounds here is way easier than holding 10 pounds here. So nutrition is going to be the biggest factor in that, right? Or at least tracking your calories, or at least having an idea of calories in, calories out, body fat percentage, and what that does to your skills and your performance in calisthenics. I stress this a lot because for me, that was huge. For me, for the longest time, I was like, okay, this is my weight. It's a good weight. Let me just train. And yeah, I would get stronger, but my progress was not at all like the way that it is now. You know, right now I'm in a phase where, you know, all you guys on YouTube, all you guys on Instagram that support me and follow the page and stuff are always asking me like, bro, how are you progressing? How are you progressing? And it's like, yes, I got a lot of tips I went on a quest for knowledge, which was documented on this channel. And I got a lot of tips from a lot of amazing athletes. And that I had to also digest. I had to take all those tips and digest them and learn how to use them, because every tip doesn't work. It's not like someone can give you 10,000 million tips. If you don't know how to use them, you're not gonna do nothing with them. But the second thing is, I've been losing weight like a madman. I've been tracking my calories for the last 6 months. I've been in a cut. And a pretty serious cut too. Like, I know pretty much exactly how many calories I eat. I have this thing that tracks my steps, so I know how many calories I burn. I understand calories in, calories out. I understand the effect that it has on my training, the effect that it has on my performance, and I take it seriously. Dude, if you take this sport seriously, like seriously, like you want to compete, you want to be one of the best, you want to perform at your best, you want to avoid injuries, you have to dial it in. Another thing I did is I walk home from the gym. I got a car. I could drive to the gym, drive back, but it's like I would never get my 10, 15,000 steps a day if I did that. So instead, what do? I take the bus to the gym, or I get a ride from one of my roommates, and then I walk back. So I make sure I get my steps. So I make sure that I'm burning the right amount of calories. I make sure that I'm cutting down any unnecessary fat. I make sure that I'm eating enough protein so that I don't lose muscle, because ultimately, you don't just want to lose weight. You want to lose fat and not muscle. And to do that, you don't just have to track your calories, you have to track your macros too. You have to make sure you're eating enough protein not to lose muscle, but you're eating enough of a calorie deficit to lose fat. So you got to figure out your nutrition, dial in your sleep, dial in your food. Fourth principle. All right, guys, the fifth and final principle, and arguably I would say this might be the most important one of them all, is gonna be mental. And I'm not talking mental like intellectual, like how we did at the beginning in terms of like theory. What I'm talking about now is the mental work behind achieving these skills. It's the thing that people talk about the least. Literally, like nobody actually talks about this, but it is probably the most important factor in unlocking these skills, I've come to find. Now, one of the first people who really introduced that to me in practice was Ilyas in our previous YouTube video that we made together. And then, you know, I talked about it with Levon, talked about it with a lot of people, And eventually I figured out how to kind of digest it on my own. But there's a lot of mental work to be done behind achieving these skills. For some people it's easier, for some people it's harder, but it is part of the process. So, and I'm not just talking about, like having a good mindset and coming into training with a good mindset, good motivation and stuff like that. I'm talking also about the mental work of normalizing the skills that you're trying to achieve. Because we have this habit as people, whenever we want something, whenever we really value something, we think it's super cool, we think it's awesome, we would love to have it, in Levon's words, we sacralize it, which means we put it on a pedestal. But the nature of putting something on a pedestal means you're putting it out of reach. And so there's a big mental work to be done in terms of taking these skills that you've put on a pedestal, that you've sacralized, that you've told yourself, I want to do this, I want to achieve it. Taking it and, in Ilyas's words, normalizing it. Telling yourself, I want this, it's incredible, but I can do it. Because you'll notice that whenever you want something so bad, and this is not just in calisthenics, I'm not trying to get all woo-woo on you and shit, but like whenever you want something really bad and you put it up, it gets harder to get because in its nature, by wanting it, you don't have it. And the more you want it, the further away from you put it. So if you take the time to do the mental work, whether it's meditation, visualization, whatever it is, just sitting in your bed and thinking about it. Like Akira said in one of our videos where he sits in his bed and he just sees himself doing skills and combos and stuff. Whatever it is, you have to do the mental work of normalizing these skills. You don't warm up to walk. You just wake up, you get out of bed and you walk. Why? Because walking is normal for you. You've normalized it. And essentially, it's the same thing to be done with these skills. I understand that they are, of course, to be respected, to be worked for. But if you don't believe that they're normal and you can achieve them, you will never achieve them. It's impossible. How are you going to achieve something that you genuinely think is impossible? You have to, it starts in the mind. Now, if you don't do the mental work, you can still achieve skills, but it takes much longer because you have to kind of achieve like very slow progressions. And slowly, what happens? You start to convince yourself that, oh, I can do this. And eventually, you get it. But if you do the work of convincing yourself that you can do it pretty early on, there's a big chance you're going to get it faster. So, do not sleep on the mental work. Jesus, it's not doing it justice right now. Look at this. Oh my God. Oh. To be honest with you guys, that's pretty much it. Those are 5 training principles that I think if you implement today, you just start trying to digest them and implement them into your training, you're gonna make the progress you're looking for. Better than any specific tutorial or any of whatever people might be promising you. Listen, dude, if it's a competent athlete and they're giving you tips about a certain problem that you have, amazing. If it's some fucking influencer who can't even really do the skills or do them to the level that you want to do them, trying to sell you some shit, be smarter, bro, okay? What I've tried to do today is talk to you about training principles that are actually gonna help you, because I'm not giving you a fish. I'm essentially trying to teach you how to fish, but you have to make your own rod, you have to digest what I've said, and it's like, I'm just passing on the information. It's not like, oh, Nikki taught me. Hell no, dude, this whole sport is just a transfer of energy, and I'm just doing my part. So that's kind of some of what I've digested from everything that I went looking for in terms of knowledge, that I'm just trying to distill down to you in all these different videos. So to recap, the theory, 1, 2, the practice, the physical work, putting the theory into practice, okay? 3 is the factors of the equation to be able to take this theory, put it into practice and program it over time. So 3, the equation and its factors, micro and macro. 4, everything else, sleep and food, the other 2 super important components. And 5, the mental work, Don't sleep on it. People don't talk about it enough, but it might be the most important thing of all. Anyway, we're finally home. Boom. My car is here. But it was an amazing walk. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I kind of enjoyed doing it. I used to think that I would be making these videos like just sitting and spitting, but it was actually fun to make it like half vlog, half answering all these questions. So if you guys enjoyed this, let me know. I love you. Thank you. I'll see you next time. Come here. Come here. Oh, the flash makes your eyes red.